President Trump is ready to blame everyone else except for himself if Republicans lose the midterms. And the midterms is actually incredibly important because it will basically determine who controls both the House and the Senate. Now, Republicans have a good chance of picking up Senate seats, or at least a possibility, since there are Senate seats right now in Trump districts, states that Trump had won, that are being defended by Democrats. But in the House, there's a chance that Democrats can pick up a majority of seats in the House, which would basically put a stop on some of Trump's agenda. Now, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, they're deeply aware of that. In fact, a lot of Republicans are starting to get a little bit worried about their chances in the midterms. However, President Trump apparently not worried at all. And in fact, he says, if something does happen, well, then it's not my fault. Oh, okay. Now, Politico, citing two people familiar with the conversations with the president, reported that Trump views 2020 as, quote, the real election. Oh, no, that's a real election. So this is funny because this actually reflects what a lot of Americans actually think. Now, I told you Donald Trump is a Fox News president, right? So he is like the average person, but with, no, he's not, that's not even fair, okay? He's actually not the average person. He's just somebody who watches a lot of cable news, but doesn't actually care about politics, doesn't get into the specifics of policy, and just cares about the theater. And he's got money, a fortune that was basically that he had inherited, right, from his dad. So he doesn't know anything. He doesn't understand how important midterms actually are. And there are a lot of American people, that actually feel the same way about midterms. That's why you don't see a lot of turnout during midterm elections. So, anyway, so he doesn't view them as important. No, he actually views the 2020. Why? It's because he's up for re-election. Oh, no, that's the real election. Again, he doesn't understand how government actually works, and can't understand that the reason that some of his, the only reason actually that some of his policies have actually been put into place is because he has not had divided government. He got lucky enough to actually have a majority in both the House and the Senate, or else those tax cuts, for example, would not have gotten through the Senate had the Democrats controlled it. Again, no intellectual curiosity, doesn't understand how any of this works. But anyway, he said he doesn't see the midterms as a referendum on himself. Now that's going to contradict to earlier statements. But for one, he says, these are their elections, referring, of course, to the candidates up, and if they screw it up, it's not my fault. Hey, man, I'm not going to take it. Look, this is not a referendum on me. Actually, yeah, it kind of is. And it's not just this election being a referendum. That happens, midterms are a referendum usually on a lot of presidents. For example, the midterms in 2014 under President Obama. That was a referendum on the ACA. 2010, also the same thing. That was a referendum on the ACA and Barack Obama in his first term. And of course, that brought in this the Tea Party wave. Now, the bailouts, of course, had something to do with that. AstroTurf funding from all these big corporate groups also had a lot to do with that midterm election. Depressed turnout from Democrats, of course, had a lot to do with that election. You understand, right? So it is a referendum on Trump. And look, so far, the Republicans don't have a whole lot to run on. That's why you see fear about the caravans. That's why you see fear about Democrats being soft on crime. They're the party of criminals. They want criminals. They want more criminals. They want illegals to come over, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, all they're doing is selling fear. They can't sell the tax cuts because the tax cuts are incredibly unpopular, deeply unpopular with the American people. Most people haven't even seen a change in their paychecks. So what do they have to run on? Of course, fear and fear and fear. And who's good at stoking fear? Republicans, Donald Trump especially. So saying that this is not a referendum on Trump is completely wrong. And look, it's not just me that's saying that. It's Donald Trump saying that too. In fact, last month in Missouri, Trump told his crowd, quote, "Get out in 2018 because you're voting for me." Now, either he's confused about how often he has to run for president, or he's saying, no, this is a referendum on me. And look, if you got to get out there so that we can maintain a majority. What you take from that statement depends on how much faith you put in President Trump's brain and how smart you actually think he is. So, but look, as stupid as he is, he's got to understand that this does matter, right? These elections do matter because if the Democrats get into the House and take it over, there goes the Republican majority. And Democrats, of course, on a lot of issues, except for, of course, banking, etc., the stuff that I normally hammer Democrats about, are going to be a no-go when it comes to the House. So we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, Trump says, look, I'm not going to accept any sort of blame if anything happens because it's not my election. What do I care? Well, you should care. And here I am giving Donald Trump advice. I'm not entirely sure why. But look, the whole thing about this is that there's just a huge amount of projection here, right? Oh no, it's not my fault. You screw it up, whatever. I don't care about midterms. I don't care about real elections. It just shows you how little he actually knows about what he's really doing. And that should be scary.